the flag we all beating our chest. When it's peace, it's the same old game, the same old players, same old names. Right. My skin is my sin. My skin is my sin. My skin is my sin.
With the last words on my lips, that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the pig. You want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the pig. You've got to make a distinction. And the people are going to have to attack the pig. The people are going to have to stand up against the pig. That's what the pastors are doing. That's what the pastors are doing all over the world.
We have brought to trial here Fred Hampton. You are here to judge between two conflicting testimonies. Somebody is lying. Now, reason stands, reason is very clear here, that Private Jones, who had come from Sanford, North Carolina, would have no great desire to see Fred Hampton up in this trial. But Fred Hampton, a key figure in this community, has great reason for not wanting to be put in jail.
But the state's attorney and the state's attorney's office has reasons to see Fred Hampton in jail. We've got a new state's attorney, you see. And he said already what he thought about people that had different political beliefs than he had. His speeches sound somewhat like those of Hitler, and we know why he wants to see Fred Hampton put in jail. Why do I have a lot of arrests? Because of harassment. Why is that harassment? Because the people that harassed me have set up a problem that made me disagree with them violently, and they set up this problem in order to exploit me and other people like me. And why they want to get rid of me? Because I'm saying something that might wake up some other exploited people and some other oppressed people. And if all these people ever get together, then these pigs that are exploiting us, we'll be able to run them into the lake. That's why they want to get rid of us. And it's just, it's sort of like a primary thing with me. I'm the first move that they'll make. I'm a part of the organization. It will be the first organization they'll move on because I happen to be a part of the organization, the Black Panther Party. That is the only organization, in fact, that has came out and stood up loud and clear and said that we don't care what anybody says, whether they have guns or not and badges or 18 uniforms. If whenever they step outside the bounds of legality into the bounds of illegality, then we'll blow their brains out if they're bothering the people. And what makes them mad about that? They're constantly bothering the people. Anybody that's out there for the protection of the people happens to be in direct conflict with them. What makes them mad about it? What makes them mad about it is that they have black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descent. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state attorneys like this and reactionary state attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions with all of us people to get together and have an international proletarian revolution.
Right on. Right on.
And that's saying all power to the people.
Right on.
That's saying that no matter what color you are, you're just only two classes. And that's saying there's a class over here and there's a class over there. And the reason that this class over here has never did anything to get this class off its back because this is lower, this is upper, this is the oppressed, this is the oppressor, this is the exploited, this is the exploiter. And these people in this class have divided themselves. They say, I'm black and I hate white people. I'm white and I hate black people. I'm Latin American and I hate hillbillies. I'm hillbilly and I hate Indians. So we fight amongst each other. And you've heard the testimony of pigs here. You got pigs of all colors. You know that. You got pigs that are white, you got pigs that are black, you even got pigs that are black and white. Propagating the same type of madness that this buffoon Hanrahan would be propagating if he were here himself. And why? Because they want to keep you to believing that I'm your enemy and that everybody else that's black and that wears a lot of hair on his head and hair on his face is they want to keep you thinking that he's your enemy. Why? Because if ever you would disregard him and overlook him just for a minute and throw away that question of racism and start dealing with a little logic, then there would be no one else you could attack other than hand-to-hand, other than Davy, and other than Tricky Dicky Nixon. If you make the right decision, then the oppressed people of the world will get complete satisfaction. I know you return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
What's good, fam? This is Jobs, and you are tuned in to My Skin is My Sin on Blog Talk Radio. From goons to gods, we welcome everyone. We only have one rule, and that's be respectful. That's all y'all doing. So what's up? All right, and so matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Roman on the line, and then we're going to get Miss Elliott in on the line as well. What's good, fam?
Yo, peace, family. What's good, man?
Just chilling. What's good with you?
And I'm good, man. I'm very excited to hear this dialogue.
All right. Well, without further ado, then, My Skin is My Sin presents The Water Cooler, featuring Jane Elliott, and I don't think she really needs an introduction. Everybody that's tuned in pretty much is fully aware of who she is and the work she's put in. So without further ado, we're gonna bring Jane Elliott into the conversation. How you doing, ma'am?
Well, I'm doing just fine.
How's life?
Hello.
Hello?
How's life? Well, I think it's better than death, but I've never died, so I'm not sure. Well, definitely appreciate you taking the time out your day to come on to the platform. My name is Jobs, and as you are fully aware, that is Rome also on the line. Right.
And before we get started, is there anything you wanted to tell anyone as far as how to contact you or how to purchase one of your books?
Oh, go to my website. Only go to sales at janeelliott.com.
All right. And it's
sales at janeelliott.com, and you can purchase any of those things on that website. And I would be delighted if you'd all buy the book, A Collar in My Pocket. Somebody called me this morning from South Africa, and they want me to come to South Africa to celebrate Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday and Martin Luther King Jr. And the person who called me had just finished reading that book and said there's information in there that everyone should have. Everyone should realize how the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise affects white people during the exercise. To hear and read their responses to being treated for a few minutes or a few hours the way people of color in this country, other color groups, are treated for a lifetime. She said that's extremely important in South Africa because of the disgust with those who are of different color groups. She said this book is especially important there. And I hope she's right. I think there are things in there that a whole lot of us should read.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What makes, and no disrespect at all, but what makes a white woman born in Iowa care? What was it that changed, or were you always like that?
I've always been like this. I was the third daughter of a third daughter, and I was the middle child in the family, and I was supposed to be a boy, and I was born a girl. My mother held it against me for the rest of her life. I'm still living, so it doesn't matter anymore. But it was, I found out how, and I'm really sorry that she died because there were some things I needed to say to her. Anyway, but I found out about discrimination early because my father was Baptist, my mother was Catholic. They had to get married, so-called, and the Catholic parents despised the Baptist parents, and the feeling was mutual. So we were very definitely a single unit family. Our aunts and uncles on neither side wanted to have anything to do with us because, according to one set of grandparents, we were the dirty little bastards, and according to the other set, you never could tell, you never could be sure that we weren't going to turn Catholic. So it was really an interesting upbringing.
And so that led you to doing the brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment.
No. What led me to doing the blue-eyed, brown-eyed and it wasn't an experiment. Make no mistake about this. I don't experiment with people of any age. Mm-hmm. What I do is create a microcosm of society in a third-grade classroom or in a boardroom or in a lecture hall. And I do, on the basis of eye color, what we white folks do in the United States of America on the basis of skin color. Now, both skin color and eye color are caused by the same chemical, melanin. Mm-hmm. So that when I do that exercise based on eye color, I am creating what I've learned to create by being a member of the white society in the United States of America. And in the last year and a half, I have seen that blue eyes, brown eyes exercise replicated based on skin color all over the United States. With more venom and more vitriol than I had ever seen before since the civil rights movement began. We are now in a situation in this country where we are not, where racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia, ethnocentrism are not only accepted, they are expected and encouraged. And some really horrible things are being encouraged today because women are standing up and saying no more. Absolutely no more. But it's mostly, you'll notice, white women who are being paid attention to. Now, if you think for a minute this isn't happening to black women, you need to take another look. But white women are free to get a response when they complain.
Correct.
Black women, for the most part, will wait because they know that if they accuse a white man of something, or even a black man, well, they're more likely to get satisfaction if it's a black man. But if they accuse a white man of this kind of disgusting behavior, they will not be listened to in a pleasant way, and they will suffer from saying the things they say.
That is true.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is.
Yeah,
as a white person, I know.
That's true.
Yeah, I know what my rights are, and that's not because I'm a member of a different race, because there's only one race on the face of the earth, and that's the human race. And what white people have to learn is we have all descended from black women who were the first modern human beings who came into being in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago. Evolution is a wonderful thing. The strongest, the most capable, the most likely to survive, evolve, and survive. And with humans, it was black women. Black women are my heroes. They managed to raise fine, upstanding children for the most part in this country, in spite of all the ugly things this country says to them and does to them. Now, they have developed coping skills that I've never had to develop. But as a white woman, if I complain about some fool man doing something objectionable, I'll get attention for it. If a black woman does it, she's accused of not keeping her place, or worse. So I think we're in very dangerous times right now. In fact, I know we are. Our present leadership is absolutely terrifying because of his total ignorance. His ignorance is legendary. I've never seen anyone in that office as ignorant as this man is. The only ones who are more ignorant than he is are the members of the Electoral College who didn't know what their job was, which was to keep anybody who wasn't fit for the presidency from getting the presidency. They obviously didn't know that that was their job, and that's why Thomas Jefferson put that Electoral College into the Constitution. And here we have people who didn't know what their job was putting this fool into the presidency.
Wow, man, like that. It's tough with it. He's just horrible. Like it's. I can't agree with you more. Pretty much.
Well, if you can disagree with what I'm saying there, you're probably not as old as I am, and you don't remember what it was like to live with the awful horror stories that were coming out of Europe, and particularly Germany, during the Holocaust. And you don't see the similarity between that time and this time in the United States of America. That time in Germany, at the beginning of that mess, was very similar to what's happening in this country today. And people are not aware and alert and don't know because they weren't there. And there's no warning, evidently, in the social studies textbooks, either at the elementary, junior, senior, or high school or college level. Why don't these young people know that those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them? And if you've never learned about the mistakes of the past, you are doomed to repeat them, because human beings are fallible creatures, and we make the same mistake over and over and over unless somebody says, wait a minute, we did this in the 30s in another country. We're repeating that now. Didn't you kids learn about this? Didn't you ever hear about any of this before? Did you think it was just a one-day episode? It was 20 years, 15 years of killing people on the basis of religion or physical characteristics over which they had no control, one of which was eye color. And we're doing the same thing in this country today. We've been doing it for a long time based on skin color. But now we're doing it on religion. We are doing it on religion. And this was one of the things, this was never supposed to happen. But that's what's happening now. And it's happening because we have a man in the White House who preys on people's fears and who plays divide and conquer, which is exactly what Hitler did, which is exactly what every despot does. He just finds a way, something to make people frightened of, and then he preys on that fear, and he creates a demon. And this man has created demons which is so ridiculous. He's created demons of those brown-skinned people coming across the southern border. He is going to keep America safe for Americans. That fool doesn't seem to realize that every person from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost tip of South America is an American. Every North American, Central American, and South American citizen is an American. You cannot put up a wall on the southern border of the United States and keep Americans out because Americans are on both sides. See, his lack of knowledge is unbelievable.
I'm just not surprised.
What?
I'm just not surprised that guy made it to be the president. I'm just not. I'm not. I know he's that stupid. He is a moron. I'm just.
No, he isn't. You have to have the mind of a 12-year-old to be a moron. He's not that smart. No, don't insult my moron friends. I've got friends who are morons, and they're all smarter than this man. and they're kinder, and they're gentler, and they're more empathetic, and they understand people who are different from themselves because they have to, because they're morons. But this man doesn't have that special quality that morons have. He has never had to understand people who are different from himself. He could buy his way into college, buy his way through college, and be what one of his professors called the dumbest SOB he'd ever taught. Which delighted me. I really think I'd like to meet that professor.
Yeah, I did happen to see that.
Wouldn't that be fun? Couldn't we have fun? I could have almost as much fun with him as I had with what's his name? It doesn't matter. Go on. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I do actually.
What? Did I answer your first
question? I believe you did, and you it was beautiful. I definitely appreciate that. But I know you get a shitload of criticism, and excuse my language. I can't even imagine how much criticism that you probably get. But what's the most insightful critique someone has made that made you even alter maybe how you go about things?
Oh, the first time I did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, I said to my little third graders in all white, all Christian Whitesville, Iowa, blue-eyed people are smarter than brown-eyed people. Brown-eyed people are smarter than blue-eyed people. They're cleaner than blue-eyed people. They're more civilized than blue-eyed people. You give blue-eyed people something nice, and what do they do? And those kids say, they wreck it. And then little brown-eyed Debbie in the front row looked up at me and said, how come you're the teacher here if you got them blue eyes? And at that moment, she was being what important in her environment had taught her to be. And I found out in the next 15 minutes that those little third graders in all white, all Christian, Riceville, Iowa, knew every negative statement you've ever heard about people of color, particularly blacks, and some that I had never heard. And I had lived in Waterloo, Iowa for 7 or 8 years. So I thought I had heard all the racist remarks you could hear. But I hadn't, because little third grade Debbie knew ones that I had never heard. And I watched that child become what the significant adults in her environment had modeled for her as far as behavior went. She was acting the way we adults had taught her to behave, and so were all the other brown-eyed kids in that room. They became vicious, mean-mouthed, overbearing, aggressive, arrogant, judgmental, little brown-eyed people within the space of 15 minutes. And I found out at that moment what I should have been doing all along was teaching in a way that they would not have those behaviors as modeled for their own. That was the most shocking. But then something even more shocking came up when I went down to the teacher's lounge at noon to share with the other 2 third-grade teachers what was happening in my classroom. I told them what was going on the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. When I finished telling them what was happening, the younger one of the two, who must have been about 52 or 53 at the time, said, "I don't know how you have time for all that extra stuff. It's all I can do to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic." Well, she hadn't taught reading, writing, and arithmetic yet. She must as well have done the extra stuff. And she really hadn't taught reading, writing, and arithmetic yet. The other one said, who was over 62 years old, on the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, said in the presence of 10 or 12 other teachers, "I don't know why you're doing that. I thought it was about time somebody shot that son of a bitch." And no teacher frowned, and no teacher gasped, and no teacher said, "Helen, judge not that ye be not judged." And no teacher said, "Insomuch as they have done it unto one of these my brethren, so have ye done it unto me." Nobody said to her, "You could lose your job for that." Nobody said, "What a horrible thing to say." They all either smiled or laughed and nodded because she had expressed their feelings perfectly, and as the most senior member of the group, she had the most right to do so. At that moment, I decided that I would finish the exercise with the blue-eyed kids on the bottom, the brown-eyed kids on the top, and that no student of any age leave my presence with that kind of remark allowed. I was just furious. I was so angry. I was so angry and so astounded and so embarrassed that a white grandmother would say that, and that all those other teachers, those good white folks, church twice on Sunday and once in the middle of the week, all claimed to be good Christians, would sit there and allow that to happen. I'll never forget it. I never have, and I never will. Yeah.
Have you come across any of those third graders? And did it change?
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, I see those third graders, and I hear from their parents. And now I'm here at home. Last week, 2 weeks ago, a person from South Africa came here. She's going to do a documentary to observe the 100th birthday of, you know who I mean, the black leader. That's right, I'm 84 years old, and I forget names occasionally. And she wants to put this documentary on their program. So she came to interview me and brought a photographer, and we talked, and she said, "Could we go over?" Nelson Mandela, I'm sorry. She said, "Can we go over to the school possibly?" I said, "Well, we can go over and try it. I think they'll let me in." So we went over to the school. We walked in the front door, and the principal secretary was just walking toward the multipurpose room, and I said, "Excuse me, I'm Jane Elliott, and these folks would like to just walk around to room 10 so that they can see where this blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise happened." And the secretary said, "I know who you are, and of course you can walk around the room, around the building. You won't bother anyone." I said, "Well, I know it's teacher conference day, but we won't interrupt anyone." She said, "I know you won't. Go ahead, just go ahead." And at that point, a little girl who was sitting on a bench in front of the front window jumped up, came running over to me and said, "Are you the actual Jane Elliott?" I said, "Well, what do you know about Jane Elliott?" She said, "I go to school in your classroom. and I've seen your film, and I think you're wonderful. I said, you've seen the film, The Eye of the Storm? Yes, and it's wonderful, and you're wonderful. And about that, I said, well, let's walk back to the room. Would you like to walk back to the room with us so we can visit? Yes, I'll go with you. And she's just absolutely over the top excited. At that point, as we were walking away, a little boy came running over and said, I was in that room too, but the class was too big, so they had to split it in two, so I had to go into the other room, but it felt better in that first room, and I wish I was still in that room. That's really an exciting room. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, these kids are watching a film that we made of something that happened 50 years ago. It'll be 50 years in April. And here these 8- and 9-year-olds are in the classroom in which that happened, and their principal is encouraging their teachers to show them that film and to teach them about the dangers of racism. We walked up the hall, and they were chattering, just chattering as we walked. And when we got outside the door, there was a young man who had joined the group. He had come around from the other side. And I looked up, and he said, I said, you wouldn't happen to be the principal here, would you? He says, yes, I am. I said, I'm impressed. You've created a school in which kids are seeing the film The Eye of the Storm and learning about racism. He said, Mrs. Elliott, I know you have to be taught to be a racist. We're teaching our students not to be racist. At that point, I can honestly say now that I don't have to do that exercise anymore. I can write a chapter, a study program for 3rd grade, 6th grade, and 10th grade. And you do The Eye of the Storm and the teacher-directed activities in 3rd grade, and then a class divided, which is the reunion film and adults going through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise with the teacher-directed activities at the 6th grade, and then do the same, another part of it at the 10th grade level using some of the things that are on Facebook in a teacher-directed situation. We could educate ourselves out of the mess we've created for ourselves. Nobody's born a racist. You have to be taught to be a racist. We could teach in such a way that the kids in a given school will come out of there after the 10th grade knowing that there's a way to behave and there's a way not to behave. And there's what a racist looks like and sounds like and acts like and smells like. And be the kind of students who refuse to tolerate those racist remarks in their presence. And that's what happened with those kids. When those kids went up to junior high, one day the junior high teacher came down to the lunchroom in the teacher's lounge, and she was just furious. My sister was substituting. She said, the worst thing just happened to me in my classroom. And the other teacher said, well, what happened, Mary Lou? She said, I used the word nigger. And I'm sorry, but this is what she said. I used the word nigger. And one of those kids said, we don't use that word in this school, and if you're going to use it, I'm going to leave. And she said, what would you have done? And my sister said, well, I think I'd stop using the word nigger. Now, that kid taught that 7th and 8th grade teacher something, and she expected to get reinforced in her anger, and instead, my sister was there, and she reinforced the kid. Now, if we had children who wouldn't tolerate, and one of my students, 3rd grade students, when her grandmother came to the house, the same year that we did the exercise, the grandmother used the N-word every time she had the chance. And this little girl said to her, I'm going to go outside until you stop using that word, Grandma, because I don't believe in using that word. And the grandmother was absolutely furious. But she stopped using that word in front of that child. Now, it says in the Bible, a child shall lead them. 3rd graders can lead adults into sensible, empathetic behaviors. But if nobody's doing it, then why bother? But when you get attacked by a 3rd grader and then by a junior high school student who says what you're doing is wrong, and the law supports the kid, but we don't enforce that law very often. But if we had enough children who would say, no, you aren't going to tell me that. And if it's a good thing I'm not teaching at the elementary level right now. Because if I were, I would have my students get a bunch of Christmas cards with the Holy Family on them, and I'd have them color them right. Because I think it's time that we told the truth about the Holy Family. There is no way Mary was blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and pale-skinned. And there was no way the baby Jesus looked like a little Pillsbury Doughboy. According to the Bible, he had feet of bronze and woolly hair. Now, that's not what the... And I love it. I would just like to totally ruin a group of children by saying, people, here's what Jesus looked like. And here's what Mary and Joseph looked like. And the latest thing I hear from theologians is that Joseph was not Mary's husband. As Roy Moore said, that old man married that young woman, so it was all right in those days, so why isn't it all right now? I could have thrown up at that. What he doesn't realize is that Joseph was going to pay his taxes, and he took his pregnant, unwed daughter with him. Joseph was Mary's father, not her husband. And he certainly wasn't the father of Jesus, according to the Bible. Now, if you don't believe the Bible, that's another problem. Don't you wish you hadn't called? You can hang up if you want to. I'll be perfectly happy to hang up, and then you'll have to deal with the fallout. And then if you ask me to hang up now, you can say, I got rid of her, it's okay. So I won't allow her to corrupt you any longer.
I wouldn't do that.
I know most people will disagree with most of what I'm saying, and that's all right. But if they keep on listening, they might hear something they could learn from.
I could agree with that. So let me ask you this: what do you? We have been as black people just done horribly since we were stolen and brought here. And I understand when you say.
Wait a minute. You weren't all stolen and brought here. If you haven't read Ivan Van Sertima's book, They Came Before Columbus, you don't realize that there were blacks in this country before slavery. Blacks had a history before slavery, but people in this country, in our schools, we teach that history for blacks started when we went to Africa or when we went to England and took those that the British had taken out of Africa. That's not when black history started. And if you read the Nile Valley contributions to civilization, you will be so absolutely amazed. And if people would just realize, and they won't because we don't want to, if you had any idea of the contributions that black people have made to civilization in the far distant past and the recent past, you would be absolutely amazed. It never fails to delight me when I pull up to a stoplight and the light's red, and there's some big trucker there, because he's got a schedule to keep and he wants to get going, and that stoplight's stopping him. And I look up and I grin at him, and I know he's thinking I'm trying to flirt with him. I'm not. Number one, I'm too old, he's too young. But on the other hand, I'm smiling at him because I'm thinking, fool, if you knew that your life right now is being controlled by the invention of a black man, you'd be really angry. You'd run this light. A black man invented the traffic signal.
True.
If people realized that, they'd have to every time they stopped at a stoplight, every time they went through a stoplight, every time they saw a stoplight, they would be reminded of the black men who provided it for us. If they realized that every time they turn on a light, they're able to do that partially because of the black men who created many of the elements for transmitting electricity, generating and transmitting electricity. If they knew that, would they go back to candles? Hadn't better, because people of color had fired before white folks got cold. If we just dared to teach about all the wonderful things that we have because of the efforts of people of other color groups, we would be a more humane society, and I don't think white people or people of other color groups have any idea of what real freedom is. Real freedom is being totally free of the shackles of racism. Real freedom is being able to love people of whatever color group. Real freedom is being able to have people of whatever color group in your neighborhood and in your schools and in your faculty and in your administration and in your hospitals. And without that wonderful black man who developed the process for stored blood plasma, a whole lot of people wouldn't be alive today. But we don't teach about that in the schools. We teach about slavery, as if we did black people a favor by going to Africa. And I've had people say to me, in my presence, say, well, just think what bad shape these people would be in if they were back in Africa. Look at all the problems they got in Africa, as if we don't have them here, and as if we did them a favor bringing them here. They were here before we got here. And Native Americans are the color they are because black people got here. They are descendants of black people. And Asians are the descendants of those first black women. And the reason their skin is a different color is because of their diet. It is not because they developed in a different climate. You sure you want to know all this?
Oh, I'm just soaking it in. Well,
the Pope said not too long ago, that Bible's a nice book, but those things never happened. He said it's a group of moral stories to teach us all how to live. But the Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, that didn't happen. People get all upset when I say that, and I say, well, you want to talk about evolution? We can talk about that. If you believe evolution, the first man that God created was created out of dirt in the Garden of Eden. In order for that dirt to be something that would be productive, number one, it had to be made out of decayed vegetable matter, because those palm fronds fell to the ground and decayed vegetable matter turns either very dark brown or black. And if you don't believe that, you look at coal and oil, both of which are decayed vegetable matter held under great pressure for thousands of years. Okay, so the first man had to be black. The first woman was made out of Adam's rib. All bone tissue is white because it's made of calcium. So the first couple created by God was a black man and a white woman. Now, a whole lot of people don't like to hear that, but if you're going to preach the story, the creation story to me, you better look at it as it really could have been if it happened that way. It had to be a black man and a white woman. But that's not what happened. Black women came first. And black women will be here last. Because as the rays of the sun get stronger and stronger because of the destruction of the ozone layer, melanin in your skin will protect yourselves from the damaging rays of the sun. Black women have a lot of melanin in their skin. They'll be here long after we white women have gone on to our dubious reward. What was your question?
Geez, I totally forgot the question. What did you say? Because me personally, it's like, okay, everything that you're saying is true as far as, if you can educate a person into racism, you can basically reprogram them. But like, how long from my perspective, it's like, how long am I supposed to wait? Like, I'm tired of waiting on them to be reprogrammed. It's not enough yous out there in the world.
Well, but I think.
What do you say to people like that, like myself?
Well, what happened in Alabama this week proves that it can happen in a very short time. Now, it's in a short time since slavery started in this country, but you need to know there was slavery here before there were blacks. There was slavery on earth long before we brought black people and used them as slaves here. We used white people as slaves here, but we called them indentured servants. And they knew that they could get off that could go past and live past being indentured. But they were slaves. They were white slaves. Make no mistake about that. But we don't want to call white people slaves, so we call them indentured. It's nonsense. It's part of the reason we have the problem, because we don't use words carefully. Someone has said words are the most powerful weapon devised by humankind. I think they're right. We kill people with words all day, every day. We destroy people with words all day, every day, and we destroy some people's idiocy and evil with words all day, every day. This week, in the last 3 weeks, last 3 months, women have been coming forward and accusing men of doing despicable things. Now, they aren't hurting those men. They aren't physically abusing them, but their words have caused several people to resign from their positions and one to commit suicide. Words are the most powerful weapon devised by humankind. We had best be careful how we use them. We had better stop referring only to blacks as slaves in this country, because a whole lot of people came to this country out of debtor's prison. And if you go to Australia and you stand there and you read the list of people who came to Australia, that was a prison climate. That was a prison. They turned Australia into a place where they could send people out of prison so that they wouldn't have to rehabilitate them. They could send them to Australia and get them out of the country and make Australia a white man's land. And you can see those records that they kept of those people. They're all white people because they needed to make Australia white. And during the Second World War, 400 children off the streets of London were picked up and shipped to Australia, and their parents were told that they would bring them back after the war was over. The children were told that their parents had died. And those kids were raised in Australia, never seeing their parents. There was one woman who was in a group that I did with the exercise with in Australia, and she said, I never saw my mother until 2 weeks before she died. She said, I went and I finally found my mother, and 2 weeks later she died. And she said, my mother never got to see me graduate from high school or graduate from nurses training. She never got to see me working in a hospital. She never realized that I was alive until 2 weeks before she died, before the mother died. Now think about that. Great Britain, England calls itself one of the most civilized places on the face of the earth. That's uncivil. That is uncivilized. So you best be starting to be more careful about words. We have a member of the House of Representatives in Iowa. His name is Stephen King. And he says no colored people have ever contributed anything valuable to civilization. Oh my God! I just want to find his former teachers and give him a whack on the side of the head. He should know better than that by now. But he believes that because that's what he was taught. And did you know who was the first black president? Do you know who the first black president was in this country?
Oh, his name? Oh, and I forgot his name.
You did not forget his name. Who wrote the Gettysburg Address?
I cannot remember the guy's name.
Who started the Civil War and then stopped it? Who was shot while he was at the theater? Abraham Lincoln. Shame on you. You didn't know he was our first black president, did you?
No, I did not know that.
No, and neither did most of your listeners. He was part black, he was part white, and he was part Cherokee Indian. And he came from that place in Kentucky where there are Melungeons, all of whom are part white, part black, and part Cherokee Indian. Most of them have now moved to Texas. But we don't teach about that because we can't make a hero out of a man whom we would call multiracial, which is a lie. There is no multiracial person in the United States of America that we know of, except maybe Donald Trump, because every person that you will meet has probably two parents who came from this planet. When you meet somebody who's biracial and they say to you, well, I'm biracial, you need to say, really? Which of your parents came from outer space? Because if you came from this planet, there's only one race. You aren't biracial if you were born on this planet.
It's hard to kind of buy into that when you're getting treated like shit for the color of your skin.
Well, let me tell you something. You try raising a crop without spreading shit on it, all right? I'm from a farming background. For me, that's not a subject we want to get into. But yeah, but let me tell you something else. You aren't treated like, listen to me, you are not treated like shit because of the color of your skin. People who treat you like shit and who say it's because of the color of their skin are really, they're treating you that way because of their ignorance, not because of your skin color. But if black people will take the responsibility for the way people are treating them because of black skin, then white people don't have to be held responsible for it. What they're saying to you is, if you just not be black, I could get along with you. Now that is bullshit. Because that person who is saying that to you is a member of your race and my race and our race. And he or she is responding to the color of your skin out of total ignorance. And you need to say that, fool. Let me tell you something. If you get, find out, have somebody, go through, examine your DNA, and you'll find that at least 1% of your DNA is black. And if it isn't, you came from another planet. How do you like me now, fool? We are all members of the same race. You are one of my 30th to 50th cousins. Now, you might not want me for a cousin, but you're stuck with me. You can say, yeah, I got this crazy white cousin. And people will say, how many white cousins do you have? Because if they're on this earth, they're all your cousins.
But you got to be able to understand where I'm coming from, though. Technically you are absolutely correct. But as far as, when you are being treated or mistreated to such an extent for so long, it's kind of hard to really buy into the whole human race thing.
Well, what you have to do is stop buying into the 4 or 5 races thing. Have you read the book The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman?
I have not, but I shall.
Didn't I tell you to read that the last time I visited with you? Do you know that you just got an F in social studies?
That wouldn't be the first time.
Well, that's a good thing. If you don't learn social studies as it's taught in this country, you're a very wise person. Because if you learn it the way it's taught, you're going to learn a lie. Because they didn't teach you in social studies that our first black president was Abraham Lincoln. That's one of the things they didn't teach you. And they didn't teach you that there were slaves here before black people got here. And they didn't teach you that there were black people here before the white people came and invaded this country. And they didn't teach you that Christopher Columbus invaded this land. He didn't discover it. You can't discover a place where people are already living. They discovered it before you got here. And the people that were here were people who were also descendants of those first black women. And they didn't teach you the absolute brilliance of those first black women as they evolved in sub-Saharan Africa and moved farther from the equator. Their skin tones got different because of less exposure to sunlight. So every white person is just a faded black. And they didn't teach you that in social studies.
They did not.
And the reason they didn't teach you that is because the teachers had never been taught that. You can't teach what you don't know. And we're very careful in this country to call what we do education, when in fact what it is indoctrination. It takes us 13 years to indoctrinate a person to the myth of white superiority and to the myth of 3 or 4 different races. There are 2,500 different skin colors on the face of the earth. Now, are you telling me you can come up with 2,500 different names for races? If you can't, you are nothing but brilliant. But those first black people circumnavigated the globe without any of what we consider technology. They managed to get from sub-Saharan Africa to travel all over the globe. How did they do that if they weren't smart?
Mm-hmm.
And they did it. I wonder someday, well, we'll never know, but I would like to know what it would be like in this country and worldwide if we did away with racism and stopped forcing people to live down to our expectations of them. Do you have any idea how much brilliance will emerge from people of all colors on this earth? But if you hold only one group up as being superior, then somebody said to me, in order to keep a man in the gutter, you have to get down in the gutter with him and hold him down. And that's what racism does in this country. We destroy children on a daily basis in the schools in this country. in our attempt not to educate them, but to indoctrinate them. And if you haven't read Nathan Rutstein's book, The Racial Conditioning in Our Schools, the racial conditioning of our children, the subtitle of that is Ending Psychological Genocide in the Schools. Everybody should read that book. And then you'll realize that, oh my God, we don't have to fight a war to have freedom in this country. What we have to do is provide real education instead of indoctrination. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the dus, the prefix e, the dus, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out, the suffix a, which ate, which means the act of, and the suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. Teachers don't do that. Teachers provide facts and figures so that you'll pass the standardized tests at the end of the year. That is not leading people out of ignorance. That is saying, here is a body of knowledge carefully chosen to support the myth of white superiority and the myth of people in the United States of America. And the better you learn this myth, the better off you will be later in life. It's a lie. It is total hypocrisy. And it is a denial of everything that we in this good Christian nation call religion and Christianity. Judge not that ye be not judged. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, man. We do have a caller, too, that wanted to make a comment or ask a question, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, but if they want to abuse me, I'll hang up because I don't need it.
That's not going to happen here.
Right.
Hold on one second. We're going to get the six.
Well, if you want to argue with me, that's fine. But if you want to be abusive, call somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment right there, and I'm not going to have that. We're going to get to 6334 right quick. What's good, fam?
Go ahead.
I'm well. How are you?
All right, yourself.
Well, I don't. Oh, okay. What's your question?
My question is, as a young black woman with children, how do I go out about combating the definition of racism in school?
Oh, you go to the teacher, each teacher, and take the last paragraph in the last page of the book, The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman. And you read that paragraph to that teacher, just one sentence of it, and then say, now in the future, when you talk about different kinds of people, different groups of people, I want you to use color groups or cultural groups instead of race. Because I don't want my children to be miseducated to the idea that there are 3 or 4 different races. And any time you point to one of my children in the classroom, you say color group, not race. Do not allow anybody to talk about biracial, there's no such thing, or multiracial, or racial identity. Nonsense. There's only one racial identity on the face of the earth, and that's the human race. Do not allow teachers to use their ignorance to put your children down, because when they use the word race or when they talk about multiracial, biracial, nonsense, what they are showing is their ignorance. And they need to know that you know the difference. And if they don't know the difference, they aren't qualified to teach your children. And you're paying a lot of money to have those children taught the truth. Does your school celebrate Columbus Day?
No.
No, that's a good idea. That's a step forward. That's something they've learned. You need to, in February, you need to go to school and tell the teacher that you expect her, him, or whatever it is, to teach those children that our first black president was born in February, and his name is Abraham Lincoln. And then you tell that teacher, in case they don't know, and the chances are pretty good that they won't, that Abraham Lincoln was a Melungeon. He was part black, part white, and part Cherokee Indian. And you expect that teacher to recognize that, and to point that out to those children in a manner that says, look how brilliant this man was. See how brilliant somebody can be who is a mosaic person. Instead of multiracial, he's mosaic. A mosaic is something made up of many different elements, and that's what Abraham Lincoln was. On the other hand, this fool now, who's made up of only one. Cottage cheese, I think. He can't help it. He can't help it. He's crimson way. Anyway, you need to educate the educators. And if you go to this, how old is your oldest child in school?
16.
16. Well, that black high school teacher needs to have that 16-year-old student go to that high school teacher with some of the information out of the book The Myth of Race, or out of the book Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, or out of the book They Came Before Columbus, and teach his or her teachers some things that those teachers don't know. That will improve the climate in the building for everybody. It'll make it less pleasant for your child, who is telling the teacher that there are some things that child knows that the teacher obviously doesn't know. So the child has to teach them. Well, even a child will teach them. You give that kid some arming. You have to arm your kids with knowledge teachers don't have. Because the teacher is using, unless I'm very much mistaken, some armaments against those kids on a daily basis when they let them think that black is better than white, and, you know, if you're brown, hang around, if you're black, get back, if you're yellow, you're mellow, and if you're red, you're dead.
Wow.
You know that. If you're white, you're all right. And you know that poem goes around in the school. You know what's being said in the school. You know the kids are saying it to one another or about one another. And we have to turn it around. We have to say, if you're black, I'm not surprised, because aren't we all? Because we all came from the same ancestor. We all came from the same black women. And for a long time, there were nothing but black women. They reproduced asexually. But then, as a result of a mutation of the genes, the first man was born. So when you're arguing with a man, remember you're talking to a mutant, and don't get upset about it.
Oh.
That explains a lot with me. And you got an echo in your phone too, there, Queen 6334.
I'm sorry, that may have been my new great grandchild crying.
Oh no. There was like an echo.
It's me. It was me.
Yeah.
Oh, and everything I'm saying is coming to you twice?
No, ma'am. Her basically sometimes, like if somebody uses a Bluetooth or they're listening to it through their computer, sometimes it gives off an echo in their phone, and you can kind of hear it through the switchboard.
Oh, well, I just turned off my computer. Can you hear it now?
Oh, no, it wasn't you. It was our caller.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh,
well.
I'm sorry, caller.
That's okay. It's okay.
Well, look, cousin, don't abuse my cousin just because she didn't turn her computer off, okay?
No.
Nobody is allowed to criticize my cousins. You got it?
There it is. There it is, people. We're all members of the family of man. We are all 30th to 50th cousins of one another. That's it. And if we could finally get that into our heads, we will be less energetic about killing off North Koreans. And if we teach that to whatever his name is, he would be less determined to kill us, his cousins. And that religion our president is so angry about says to kill one human being, it is as if you killed the world. That's in the Quran. It is.
Yeah. But Jesus, according to the Old New Testament, said, "Thou shalt not kill." We good Christians spent 300 years in the Crusades, 300 years killing people in order to spread Christianity. Does that bother you at all?
Mm.
Because if that's the way true Christians behave, then Donald Trump is right when he decides to bomb, as he said, bomb the shit out of them and take their oil.
Mm.
Yeah.
But those of us who know better would just as soon use those propellers, which they have thrown away because you don't use propellers anymore, and put them on a standard and use them to produce energy. You could use them for wind vanes, all those propellers that we had on all those airplanes that we used to fly over countries and kill people. It's called recycling.
And caller, I definitely appreciate you calling up. I got, a couple more people in the queue. I want to make sure we get to a couple of people, if that's cool with you.
Wait. I want to ask that caller a question. Are your children, children are in school? Have they had what? Are they gone already?
Have they done what?
Are your children? You're the caller and you're still there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Have your children had any trouble in school as far as learning?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing is they debate. And okay, well, like all together.
Have you looked at their scores? Are their math scores better than their reading scores?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any left-handedness in your family? On either side, your husband's or yours?
Yeah, on both sides, yes.
You need to go to the school and say, here's the way it is, friends. You are required by law to teach my children according to their special needs. And it sounds to me as though you may have, with left-handedness in your family on both sides, and with higher math scores and reading scores, you may be dealing with a dyslexic child who does not hear words the way they're said and does not see them the way they're written. And who gets bored quickly in school because he doesn't hear words the way they're said, and what the teacher is saying doesn't make any sense to him because he isn't hearing it the way it's said. He has a right to have a teacher trained in Orton, Gillingham phonics so that your child, every one of them, will learn to read just as fast as the rest of them do. And if their math scores are good, then they are average or above average as far as intelligence, and they should be doing average or above average work. And if they aren't, it's because the school is not meeting their educational needs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's time for me to take a trip up to the school.
You need to go. You need to get the book, John Money's book, Dyslexia and Your Child, and read it, and then take it to school. And if your kids, especially boys, are acting out in school, remember that boys would rather be called bad boys than dumb boys. And they'll act out specifically to get thrown out of the room. And they get out in the hall or get out in the principal's office, and that's exactly what they wanted, was to be out of the damn learning situation because they weren't understanding a word the teacher says, because the teacher isn't aware of what their special educational needs are. And they do not belong in special ed. Put the teacher in special ed and get a teacher in there who can teach Orton Gillingham phonics. And if you think I'm lying about that, get the film The Eye of the Storm. You can Google it. I think you can Google it or Amazon it, one or the other. Get the film The Eye of the Storm, take it home, watch it, and then go to the school and say, now, I insist that you buy copies of this to be shown in every classroom in this building. Because you will see in the behaviors of those kids in that film many of the same behaviors that you're seeing in your sons.
Oh my God! Because and I just went up to the school today.
You've got to wake up the school. All the kids in the film, The Eye of the Storm, are moderately to severely dyslexic. None of them were supposed to finish high school. All of them finished high school except one who was killed in an alcohol-related accident 2 weeks before graduation. Of the other 15. At least 6 have completed 2 or 4 or more years of post-high school education. These are kids who weren't supposed to make it. One of them has been a lawyer for years, and one of them has been a junior and senior high school principal for years. And these were kids, they called my kids the dummy group, my class the dummy group that year, because those kids were never going to learn to read. Yeah, they called them the dummy group, because he gave me those 16 kids, and he said, now these kids are never going to learn to read, Miss Elliott. I know you get upset when students in your class don't learn to read. These kids aren't going to learn to read. Don't worry about them. Pass them on and get them out of here. They'll never amount to anything anyway. And I thought, well, one of us is a damn fool, and I know it's not me, so it must be you. And I looked at their cumulative files, and their math scores were way higher than their reading and spelling scores, and I knew immediately that I was dealing with children who do not see words the way they're written and do not hear words the way they're said. And I had taken a course in Orton Gillingham Phonics, How to Train the Dyslexic Child, and I used that with those kids for 9 months. And at the end of 9 months, those kids had gained from 3 to 5 years of reading ability in a single year. Your kids could do that same thing. Yeah, your kids could do that same thing. And there's absolutely no reason for a kid who does a good job in math, except the story problems. I'll bet they have trouble with the story problems. But if he's doing a good job in math, that means he's got the IQ to do it. If he's not doing a good job in reading and spelling, he has a specific learning difference. It is not a disability, because Albert Einstein had the same learning difference. And so did Henry Ford. And Henry Ford, later on, somebody said to him, why don't you learn to spell? And he said, I can hire several secretaries to do my spelling for me. Wow. And Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover are both dyslexic. And they have managed to succeed in spite of it, haven't they?
Yeah, they definitely have.
Yeah. So you see, here we are talking about people who would probably were called failures. I think it was Henry Ford, maybe, who was called a hopeless dullard when he was in school. And look what he did for the world. I mean, give me a break.
Caller, I got to get to somebody else. The queue is kind of lighting up. And if you do have a question or a comment, call 347-855-8692. I definitely appreciate you calling up, though. That's pretty dope.
I thank you, too. And thank you, Mrs. Elliott.
Well, do what I told you to. Don't just thank me. Go do what I told you to. What did I tell you to do?
You told me to go up to the school, but before that, get the Myth of Race, watch the movie The Eye of the Storm, and get the book Dyslexia and Your Child, read those, and go up there and read it to them and let them know that basically they're teaching my child wrong, basically.
Well, they are teaching out of ignorance instead of out of an educated mind.
Okay.
And they're getting paid for it. But you can't say that to them. You have to say, you may not be aware that my child has a special difference, not disability. This is not a disability. This is a difference. He has the same problem that Sir Isaac Newton and Henry Ford and Albert Einstein had, and JFK. All had the same problem. And my son has that same problem. He's in really, really good company. So I want you to do with him what they did with those previously mentioned males and make sure that he is successful, because you're going to realize how really brilliant he must be, and you're going to teach him to read, fool.
I will do that.
And they'll say, well, did you have him tested? And you need to say, you know, a teacher who's aware doesn't have to test a child. She can watch their behavior, and because of her knowledge about reading differences, can immediately spot a dyslexic child. A teacher who is aware the first day of school will put the word no on the board and ask the students what the word is. And if half of them say on, you know that half of them don't see words the way they're written and probably are slightly too severely dyslexic. Or she will give them a list of numbers, 5 or 6 numbers, and say, write these numbers. And if they write them in the wrong order, or if she says turn to page 92 and somebody turns to page 29 or 62, the teacher will recognize that child doesn't see words the way they're written or numbers the way they're written. And if that child transposes words in a sentence, if the sentence says the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog and the kid reads the quick fox lazy dog jumped over, you've got a dyslexic child. See, if you are aware of what's going on in kids' minds, you don't mess with their minds. You teach them according to their educational needs, and that's the law. You have to furnish a teacher who is equipped to teach every child according to that child's educational needs. That's the law, and you need to have them abide by it.
Yes, ma'am.
And then when they force you to take your kid out of school because you called the teachers a bunch of dummies, but you aren't going to call them a bunch of dummies. You're just going to say, I don't believe you know what you're doing with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
But you're being paid to know. So watch the film The Eye of the Storm. Look at those kids. 2 of them were identified as mentally retarded before I got them. Well, 3 of them were. And 2 of them, one of them had severe speech language all her own, had been in speech therapy for 4 years by the time she came to 3rd grade. And one of them was a stutterer. And after we started using Orton Gillingham phonics with him for 45 minutes a day, the stutterer stopped stuttering. The kid with the speech and the language all her own spoke so that you could understand every word she said.
All right.
Yeah.
Definitely got to check that out.
Yes,
so what we're going to do is we're going to get to 3287 right quick. They've been waiting for a very long time. Definitely appreciate them. Appreciate you, 6334. Don't forget to check out the show every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, we'll get 3287 real quick. What's good, fam?
Hello. I'm very excited about your show today. So it's nice to listen.
Thank you.
And Miss Elliott, I grew up Muslim, and around in the 80s, I was in junior high school, and I was always preached, you got 3 things against you. You're Muslim, you're black, and you're a woman. You got to work extra hard. So with my children, I instilled that, especially I have 1 daughter and 3 sons. And now I have a bunch of overachievers, and some of them actually have anxiety, depression, because I just nailed it to them. And now that I have grandchildren, it's sad I have to really push the Muslim part now more than anything. How do I balance that where I'm teaching self-pride but not racism?
How is it you're teaching what and not racism?
Like, how do I? Yes. It's because it's a very fine line on
how. Are your children black? Are you black? Are your children black?
Very much so, yes, ma'am.
All right, then you need to teach those kids that they are the color the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were, and that every person on the face of the earth, maybe except Donald Trump, who may be Neanderthal, but the rest of them are all members of the same race, the human race. They are also members of a color group, the black color group. Black people were here first. Every person on the earth is a descendant of those first black women. Black people traveled the globe without the help of any white folks. Before, there were people who had gone far enough from the equator to be white before they even existed. You have to teach your kids that they are indeed a special color group. And they are the color of the first color. They are the first people on the face of the earth with their color. You have to teach them pride in what they are, because this society teaches people pride in being white. White people weren't here first. Black people were. And every white person has in his or her DNA black DNA, unless they're from another planet. You have to teach your children that they were here first, and they will probably be here last. You have to get the book Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, so that your kids will realize what fantastic things black people were doing before white people had evolved, before white people had moved, before enough blacks had moved from the equator north to have them produce their bodies get lighter and lighter, because their bodies produce less and less melanin, because they needed the rays of the sun, because there was less sunlight farther from the north or south from the equator. That's the only reason for the difference in skin color, that and diet. But you have to teach your kids. If you just get the book They Came Before Columbus and realize that they are finding statues with what we call black features in Central and South and the southern part of North America, who were there several hundred, probably thousands of years before Columbus got here. Columbus didn't discover America. Columbus was lost. And he happened on a place where there were other human beings, which the Pope said were not human. Columbus captured several members of the Arawak tribe and took them back to his land, showed them to the Pope, and the Pope said these aren't Christians, so therefore they must not be human. They kept them in Columbus land and Christianized them and took them back to the Pope, and the Pope said at that point, oh, these people have become Christianized, therefore they must be human. And he granted human status to natives of this continent after they became Christianized. Do you think they were humans before the Pope said so?
Yeah, pretty sure they were.
Well, so do I. So do I. But you see, we have had a history. But you also need to know that this nonsense about skin color and slavery according to skin color has only been going on for about 500 years. Created this problem after the Spanish Inquisition because they discovered that they were killing people before they could determine for sure what their religion was. So they decided they'd have to come upon a different way to decide who should die and who should live. And they came on skin color. Has nothing to do with being God's chosen children. Has nothing to do with with racism has always been with us. No, it hasn't always been with us. There has always been slavery with us, but there has not always been racism based on skin color. That's a creation of people shortly after, during and after the Spanish Inquisition, which is about 500 years ago. Your kids need to hear the truth, but they won't hear it from the school because the school doesn't know it. So you get those books about the past. Those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. Your children need to know the truth. And that won't make their white teachers happy. But you aren't in the business of making white teachers happy, nor ignorant black teachers. You're in the business of educating your students before they go to your children, before they go to school, before the school has a chance to destroy their education.
And I did a lot of homeschooling on my children. So I do teach self-pride, and I do teach a lot of those stories and that you were just speaking of. But I'm just trying to have that fine line to where self-love does not become hate for other people. And that's
I'm not talking about hateful of other people. I'm talking about the truth about other people.
I know, but how
and if people find that hateful, that's their problem.
Okay.
And this is not teaching hatred of other people. This is saying, here's how it started. Here's how human beings behaved until about 500 years ago, when they wanted to find a new way to determine who they would make into their enemies and who they would be allowed to kill, and they based it on skin color. So, this is what is happening to your children in school. It's only been happening for about 500 years. Now, 500 years from now, I hope people will say, well, 500 years ago, we decided that what we had learned 1,000 years ago was a lie, so we stopped believing it. Eventually, the Greeks stopped believing that the sun was a god that goes across the sky in a golden chariot every morning. That myth is no more ridiculous than the myth of 3 or 4 different races. There's only one. Is that what you taught in school, that there's only one race and we're all members of it?
No, I wasn't.
Well, my dear, now you've got a chance to fix what you messed up. In your children, you have the chance, and your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, you have the chance to fix what all of us messed up over the last 500 years. We could fix this mess. We created the myth of race, and anything you create, you can destroy. We could destroy the myth of race. I don't know how old you are, but I am working on destroying it in my lifetime. I've only been working on it for 50 years. How long have you been working on it?
About 40.
Well, see? But the difference is,
I honestly don't think that's possible.
No,
you don't think it's possible? It is too possible. It is possible.
See, racism? Oh.
Yes, it is. It's more than possible. And I'll tell you why. Within 30 years, white people will have lost their numerical majority in the United States of America. Within 30 years, white people will be a minority. And people say to me when I give a speech, if they get power, white people say this, if they get power, aren't they going to want to treat us the way we've treated them? And I say, listen to what you just said. You just admitted that you treat people of other color groups unfairly. Well, I didn't admit that. What do you think you did admit when you just said, they want to get even with us? White folks, if you don't want to be treated badly in the future, stop treating people badly in the present, because you are creating your own future. We will. There will be a decided difference, and you're going to see it, and I'm seeing it already. I'm seeing Alabama, in where they elected somebody who nailed 2 members of the Klan for killing those little black girls. And the man who did that is the man who is now going to be the senator from Alabama. That proves to me that things are changing. Make no mistake about this. Things are changing.
I will be glad to see that. I'm definitely, and I guess historically speaking, from my standpoint, it has just taught me to not trust that change is going to happen in my lifetime or, the lifetime thereafter.
How old are you?
I'm 45 years old.
45 years old, my friend. You're 45 years old. You were 5 years old the first year I did the exercise.
That is true.
Yeah. And in those 45 years, we were making good progress. We were really making good progress. With Jimmy Carter, and even W was a whole lot better than this one. And we had Barack Obama, which said to me when we elected Barack Obama, things are getting better. But the men from the South in the Senate and House of Representatives refused to cooperate with that black man because they're ignorant. And this man has now tried to undo everything that Barack Obama did that was right. And people are now seeing that happening. And they're seeing how dangerous that is. And they're seeing how ignorant that is. And they're beginning to say, wait a minute. Maybe 8 years of a black man in the White House wasn't so bad after all. But that's really terrifying to some redneck white men, to think about having 8 years of a black man in their White House. I remember when Richard Nixon said to a group of reporters, I'm trying to save the White House for you white people. And I thought, well, God's going to get you for that. And God got him. and he'll get this fool. God will get him. Because there's a power in the universe that, Martin Luther King Jr. who said the arc of whatever goes to justice? It was on its way. And this man is where he is only because some really ignorant people in the Electoral College didn't know what their job was. Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than this fool did. So things are getting better. Believe me, they aren't as bad today, or they weren't as bad 2 years ago, as they were when I was a kid. And I'll bet you know they weren't as bad for you. They aren't as bad for you now as it was for your parents.
I don't know, being a 70s baby, it was pretty bad for me.
You're what?
See, I'm a 70s baby. It was still pretty bad in the 70s.
Well, yeah, it was bad, but we were working at it in the 70s. We were talking about it. People were demonstrating against it in the 70s. They aren't now. Now they're demonstrating against people like Donald Trump and his policies. That's progress.
Yeah.
We've got people out there in the street just furious about the things that are being done in the name of, because of Steve Bannon and this fool. And they're doing those things because they found out that there's something wrong. We've got to fix this. There's something very wrong. We've got to fix it. And we could. But you can't. I dare not give up. I dare not say we can't make a difference, because I know we can. I know one person can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
This Trump
that
person
is
is only one person.
Yeah.
Trump is only one person, isn't he?
He is.
That is
Has
true.
he made a difference? He's made a terrible, terrible difference. So don't tell me that one person can't make a difference. If one evil person can make this big a difference, then a group of not evil people can make a big difference. But you have to be convinced. I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced that this can all be changed.
And just so people know, if you are called in, because the show ends technically in 2 minutes, but if you are in the queue, you are called in, Blog Talk will let us go as long as Blog Talk let us go, and it's up to Miss Elliott how long she wants to be on with us. But just so you know, if it does shut off in 2 minutes, we definitely appreciate your time and your energy. Definitely look out for it on YouTube. And don't forget, we're doing the Conscious Olympics, I believe, in 2 weeks, where you can win at least $100, and all you got to do is answer some questions about us. As simple as that. We're doing Black Business Buzz next week, and we also going to talk about some Bitcoins. So I just want to make sure we got that out there. Definitely appreciate everybody for checking us out. And I'm sorry to interrupt, Miss
Okay,
Elliott.
Chuck, I have to go now. Listen, I have to go now because my daughter, my granddaughter, and my great-grandchild have to be home, so I have to leave as they do.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time and your wisdom. It was truly, it was definitely a wonderful show, and look forward to talking to you again.
Well, I hope we do. I hope you do have to listen to me again. You didn't get a chance to talk. Next time, I'll let you talk, but don't ask me a question if you expect to take a yes or no answer. It isn't going to happen. Make everybody read the book
that works
I
for
told you
me.
to read. Okay, all right. Thanks for calling.
All right, no problem. Have a good one.
You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in. Interesting show. And she's right. I did not get a chance to ask many of my questions, so hopefully we can get her back one day because there's definitely some things that I feel like I left on the table. But you know how I do. I didn't want to interrupt the bill either, so appreciate everybody for tuning in. Lotus and Aisha's page. Shout out to Rome for the plug. If you need anything in regards to promotion or anything about the show, email the plug at goonstogods@gmail.com. Appreciate that, Mako, for tuning in. And as do I even have anything? Oh, you know what? I do got something I want to end off with. So peace. Don't forget to check out MySkinIsMySin.com.
Nah, hold up. Wow. Hey. Okay. Hold up, shout. If you a student in the game, you getting the best college course you can't even pay for right now. Hold up. How focused are you right now, Chris? Hold up. I got new album out right now. It's a double disc too for you rappers. How about the bed and I won me a chip? My flow a chopper, a beam in a clip. Stuff in the trunk of a car with some thump. Why you jump out the window with Nego a clip? I'm the ghost of the crack that was stuffed in the hovers. Born to be king, you was meant for a rubber. I double the double cup, I'm seeing double. You hustle nigga, get the fuck out my huddle. Break, I seen it clear. Being humble ain't shit when you being feared. I'm an old soul, we ain't even peers. Niggas talk at top 5 like I ain't even here. But that's how I go when you do the most. This ain't about clubs or selling dope. I'm talking about murdering niggas on wax and bringing them back like I seen a ghost. Foldo, old dough, here I go, Mr. Kyle with the paint. Been body, 9-5 minded, what hot by the tank. Count it up, throw it in the safe, I'm living in a bank. I come from the country, I know how to work the land and come back with a mank. Frost, big cold wrist, this ain't nothing new, this some old shit. Barely used to wear, rather buy a mansion, talk to my brother, you can hold this. Dry cleaning my demeanor when it comes to business, can you fold this? In the yo with me hella dope, them a B where the stove is. Crystal, Third Coast, motherfucker, what's happening? Hey.
Peace, fam. Don't forget, check us out every Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.